Hey y'all, Corey here. We've got a really exciting topic for you today. So exciting that we talked about it for an extra long time. So today's episode ended up getting split into a two-parter. We have part one for you today. We were also very excited to talk about the Haunting of Bly Manor, which we do quite a bit during the first half of the episode. So if you haven't seen it yet, or if you haven't seen Haunting of Hill House, fair warning, there are hella spoilers in this episode, so you may want to skip about minute 14 to about minute 33. Enjoy part one of our chat about why growing up Catholic makes you spooky.
Look out, something is going to get you tonight. Let's talk about the thing that's going to get you tonight. Welcome to the Happy Harvest Horror
Show. Welcome to the podcast. I'm Corey.
And I'm Brian, and this is the Happy Harvest Horror Show, and it's not just us two this week. We have a very special guest. Connor is in the house.
Woohoo!
Connor!
Hello, everybody.
Connor is a good friend of mine from New York City, and he is joining us to talk about a spooky topic today. Well, before we get into it, I just wanted to first do a shout out to a friend, Jody, who is a new sponsor, I guess, of our show. So thank you so much, Jody.
Yes, thank you to our new monthly supporter, Jody, along with Jennifer, our other monthly supporter on Anchor. We really appreciate y'all helping us make this content. And if you are enjoying Happy Harvest Horror Show and you got some spare change lying around you want to throw our way, you can head over to anchor.fm/HHHS/support. You can become a sponsor of the Happy Harvest Horror Show. They make it super easy. There's a few different levels, and yeah, you just like sign up and, throw some of your spare change our way so we can keep making spooky content. Thanks so much for all of you out there listening, all of you out there writing iTunes reviews, and yeah, thank you, Jennifer and Jody. We really appreciate you.
Hell yes! Okay, so now we can get on to the show. Before we get into our fun spooky topic, first off, we should start with our guest, Connor. How spooky has your week been?
How spooky has my week been? It's actually been a little extra spooky this week.
Yes, we love to hear it.
My job right now is that I'm an elderly care companion, and so I spend a lot of time with the elderly, and spending time with the elderly also means that you're faced with your own mortality quite often.
Yes.
Oh.
And that was especially in the room with me this week. I won't go into too much detail about it, and nobody died, so we shan't freak out about that. But I was
Connor, how spooky was your week?
Well, it was full of corpses, everyone. It was just raining corpses. Yeah. But I will say it did have me contemplating mortality more often than I usually do, and I feel like I'm someone who is contemplating that more often than most people usually are. So it was very, very heavy on my mind this week.
Yeah, I feel that. I feel on the contemplation of mortality thing. I have a personal kind of, I guess, goal, interest, dream, if you will. I'd really like to be like a death doula, like one of those people that helps people pass on. Like, I'd like to do that.
That's intense.
And like, you kind of sound like a superhero, like the death doula. Mm-hmm. That's got a lot of power behind it.
Right.
Just, yeah. Oh my gosh. I feel like that requires so much wisdom that I don't know if I'll ever have, so much.
Yeah. And I don't know why, but the idea sounds great to me. Like, it sounds very, very, something that I feel like I'd be very comfortable, in that position. So at some point in my life, when I am just more stable and have more time available to give to something like that, I'd like to do that. I feel like that would be a cool thing. So I understand you on the contemplating mortality all the time.
Yes.
What else? Corey, how spooky was your week?
How spooky was my week? Oh, I went on a cute autumnal camping trip.
Oh, yeah. I saw those pictures.
Yeah, which was fun and spooky and a good time. It was more cute than spooky, but like kind of spooky. We had like a projector, and we watched my favorite show in the entire world over the garden wall.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect.
Yes.
Yeah, and we had spiked apple cider and bonfire, and it was just a cute autumn time, but also kind of spooky. Camping's always kind of spooky.
It's always, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Like it's always a little weird, a little freaky.
Yeah, the threat of an axe murderer is just like omnipresent.
Always
like,
there.
Who's in these woods?
Dude, speaking of, that's so funny you bring that up.
Can't wait
You
for
said
this.
something because I was getting to the axe murderer part of it.
He really enjoyed Over the Garden Wall.
We had an axe, and one of us was very savvy with the axe, and he showed the rest of us how to chop wood with the axe, and we had a whole conversation. I was like, why are axe murderers like such a thing? So the axe murderer energy was actually very present for the trip.
Big axe murderer energy.
Yeah. Definitely before I went to bed, before I got in the tent, I was like, we should probably make sure the axe is like in the car, like somewhere where a potential murderer can't get to it.
Can you imagine being a murderer who only murders people using weapons that they had on them?
Oh shit.
Like the axe murderer just shows up, he's like, I don't got anything. I hope they have an axe in their car.
Yeah, they've got their own like engraved handles and everything. They're like, I don't use anything but my own certified tools. It's like Ron Swanson of murderers. Like, we won't use
Brian, how spooky was your week?
Is pretty spooky. Well, I have to first give a shout out to my mother, who just sent a care package from Vala's Pumpkin Patch.
Love ya, Wendy. Oh my god.
She sent over. I'm currently, if you hear a little gnawing in the background, because I'm chewing on a honey stick.
I'm so jealous right now.
Oh, and it's so tasty. And the room is filled with the smell of this candle, which is candied apple scented, and it smells so good. She also sent mulled cider tea bags and a jar of apple pie preserves that I'm going to put on everything. I'm just going to cover myself in it. I can't wait. So I love my mom, and I have a little bit of Vala's Pumpkin Patch. If anyone else doesn't know about Vala's Pumpkin Patch, make a pilgrimage, because it is the best place on earth. This family-run little pumpkin patch outside of Omaha, Nebraska.
Wow.
That's more than a pumpkin patch. It's an experience.
Are they one of our advertisers? We're gonna come and run an ad for their pumpkin patch.
I will
right
be
now.
the shill for Vala's Pumpkin Patch for the rest of my life. They are this family run. They like every year they add something new to it, like an apple pie barn or a corn maze or a dog shit. Like it just keeps growing, and now it's just this like basically like this DIY sort of like wholesome but super kind of dingy sort of place. But it's
like a autumnal amusement park.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
It's the best.
Yeah, they've got pumpkin cannons. They've got apple slingshots. They've got little haunted houses. They got everything.
I'm gonna actually, now that you bring that up, I'm gonna, for our listeners out there that are following us on Instagram, I'm gonna post, because you and I have taken a few trips to Vala's together in undergrad.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We've got some really just like cute friendship group photos at like the pumpkin patch that I think I'm gonna post on the Instagram for everyone.
Oh, it's heaven. It's heaven. So I am very grateful to my mother for sending this package, because she was there last week, and I got emotional when she sent me the picture. She's like, guess where I am? And I was like, oh no. Oh no. That's where I want to be.
I'm going to put this out into the universe. I'm going to manifest this. I would love to do Happy Harvest Horror Show live at Vala's Pumpkin Patch.
Oh, absolutely.
Man. Next to like the animatronic dragon.
Yes.
That eats pumpkins.
Exactly.
Oh yeah. Connor, this place is insane.
I'm going to Nebraska tomorrow. Words I never thought I'd say.
That's one thing that happened this week. Another thing is there was another film festival that a friend of mine also basically split tickets to see one movie, and that is Possessor, Brandon Cronenberg, who is David Cronenberg's son. And this movie was supposed to come out in theaters technically now, but I can't go to any theaters to see this movie.
Right.
So this was like one of the many casualties of 2020 that I was going to miss this movie. But that was amended this weekend, where we all split this festival ticket for this online festival just to see this one movie. And it was rad. It was all about this. It's basically like sci-fi body horror is what it is, where there's this basically assassin that possesses, really, through kind of like Inception sort of thing. They possess another person, and then they like do all these deeds or whatever. But the movie's all about the longer you're in this other person's body, the more you're unable to differentiate you from them, you know, that kind of classic story. But it gets really gritty and dark and but it was great. So keep an eye out for it. It's coming out in December. Possessor is what it's called.
Oh, I can't wait for that. I am obsessed with the idea of possession. So
yeah, very uncomfortable movie, but big fan. So that was great. And I don't know what else was fun.
I feel like we would be remiss if we did not mention that the Halloween, I received mine in the mail today.
Do you like your little contribution?
Yes, I'm so thrilled. I couldn't believe I had the first entry. I was shocked. I was shocked.
Yes. If anyone is unfamiliar, on our Instagram, I have posted the Hallowzine that my partner and I worked on, which is just like a little book, like sort of little magazine celebrating Halloween in this time. And there's still time if you want to get one before Halloween. You should go to our Instagram and follow the steps to get one, because Connor did a contribution and recommended a bunch of books and movies you can read during your Halloween time.
Yes. And our dear friend Casey put in some costume ideas, and now I'm torn between Crispy Boy and Grandfather Crocodile, to which she said, why not both? So I was like, the Crispy Grandfather Crocodile Boy.
What is a Crispy Boy?
I don't know, but I would have such a fun time figuring it out.
My favorite costume idea that she put down was the Sleepwalker defense.
Oh, yeah, I thought that was great.
You blame the homicide on the sleepwalking.
Right.
I love that.
Oh my God.
Do you guys have Halloween costumes planned yet?
Walls and I maybe we're still planning. We might just do it for ourselves because there's nowhere to go. But we were going to be Bill and Ted this year.
That's fun.
Oh, cute.
We go on an excellent adventure. What about you?
So I'm going to be going to California for a few weeks.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm going to be meeting up with my art history babes.
Mm-hmm. Are you guys doing a Halloween thing?
Well, of course we are.
You have to. No choice.
We are very much doing a Halloween thing. We've done several group costumes together, and this year the four of us are going to be the four horsemen of the apocalypse.
Oh my God.
Man.
That's
I'd
beautiful.
love to see how you conjure that up. That'd be really fun.
I can't believe I've never seen that done before. That's such a good idea.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. I think it's going to be really good. I think it's going to be really fun. And also very timely. So
yeah. Which horseman are you?
Just in time. I'm War.
Okay. Rad. Did you see Good Omens on Amazon? The Neil Gaiman adaptation of his book?
No.
I haven't finished all of it, but I have started it, and I did enjoy. I can't remember why I didn't keep watching it. I feel terrible for not having continued to watch it,
so
but
wonderful.
I loved it.
It was, it's all about an angel and a demon played by Michael Sheen and David Tennant, who are longtime friends that will maybe bring about the apocalypse. But anyway, the four horsemen of the apocalypse are characters in it. And War is played by, what's her name? From The Killing. She was in...
Oh, right. I did get far enough to see the horsemen, so I do remember that. But I can't conjure her name off the top of my head.
Well, I bring it up for Corey. You could look into what they did, because it's very untheatrical. They look like real people.
Yeah, we're also going to be recording in our costumes. We're going to record a podcast episode about depictions of the four horsemen of the apocalypse.
Amazing. Perfect. So that'd be a good thing to bring up then.
Yeah.
Speaking also on shows and other depictions that we've all seen, we should not move on without talking about Bly Manor.
Yes. I knew you were going to do it. I knew you were going to do it.
It was kind of a stretch to make that transition. I was like, oh man, I'm really doing some mental gymnastics.
I was really bracing myself. I was like, I don't know where this is going to go, but I hope that I'm ready for it.
So last week we talked a little bit about it, but I hadn't finished it. So this week, if you haven't finished Bly Manor, we're gonna talk about it for a few minutes. We'll put in the show notes when we're done talking about it if you want to avoid spoilers. Let's get into it. Let's talk about Bly Manor.
Yeah.
Let's do it. Oh, I'm so excited.
Hannah Gross deserves better. That's just
Oh my God, Hannah Gross.
thesis statement for it.
Best character.
1000%. Hannah Gross was just, oh my God, everything. I loved her so much.
I want the words Hannah Gross in Paris tattooed on my body.
God.
That is like the most October of 2022.
Just like in cursive across my chest, you know? Like,
Yeah, I mean, I was going to get a tramp stamp, but you do it whatever you want, Brian.
no, I want to wear all my V-neck shirts so you can see it always, you know? Hannah Gross in Paris.
Hannah Gross. Oh, I just loved her so much.
There was a part of me that knew that was coming in a way. That like there was parts of me that were
Yes.
clocking like,
Yes.
you're not eating. Why aren't you eating? Why are you always here? Why do you keep
Exactly.
disappearing?
Yes.
Like I didn't put it together that she was a ghost, but I had there was like a hunch that like, I think you might be.
I thought, and I know this is very intentional, but I thought it was like an Alzheimer's.
Definitely. I think they're
Oh,
definitely
yeah.
pushing that.
Especially with Owen's mother.
Mhm.
Before you find out that Hannah was actually dead, like there was a lot of parallels with Alzheimer's, and I was
Yes.
Yes.
like, does she have it too? And then obviously there's the overarching theme of this, like jumping through memories, which is very much
Very much. I think that it was beautifully done. It was beautifully done. I was reminded of another show that did a very similar thing that Connor will know too, with Castle Rock season 1. With,
I love
Yes.
did you watch
Castle Rock.
Castle Rock? Okay, cool. So you would know the Queen episode where she also was struggling with dementia,
Right.
and she would
Yes.
put chess pieces around the house to remind her, no, this is now versus then, you know.
Yeah, season 1 of Castle Rock was great. I didn't care for season 2.
Oh, I love 2.
Oh, I have reverse feelings
am
about
the
it.
same way. I feel like 2 is
I
amazing.
felt like season two suddenly made season 1 make sense.
So interesting. I was like so on board with season 1, and then season 2 I got like really bored.
I thought season 1 was cool. I think Connor and I had talked that like halfway through season 1, I was like, this is playing out like a show that I think is going to get canceled.
Yeah.
But I still enjoyed it. I had fun time. But I feel like the Annie Wilkes origin story was just, my God, so good.
And she did it so well.
It was, I heard Kathy Bates in everything she did.
Yes.
And
But yeah, she was able to do such a spot on Kathy Bates and then also completely bring her own thing to it. It was like the perfect marriage of like homage to the character and then also adding her own, you know, everything else that she brought to
right.
it.
Yeah. But on Bly Manor, this is similar because, well, Corey, you were saying that you preferred season 2, Bly Manor, to season 1. And
Mhm.
I want to get into why.
Okay, so to be fair, I want to rewatch season 1, Haunting of Hill House again.
Me
because
too.
I'm actually like kind of sitting on it, and I think I may be more of like I liked them equally, maybe than
That's fair.
Mm.
I definitely, there's something about Bly Manor that for me personally, like I'm just such I'm such an emotional person, and 2, I am just a sucker for an ending. And Haunting at Hill House has a great ending too, so I'm not trying
Yeah.
Mhm.
to say otherwise because it is a great ending.
Yeah.
But I thought the ending of Bly Manor, it was nothing I could have ever expected, and it was so beautifully done.
Mhm.
And it took me
Yeah.
on this journey I just could never in a million years have expected it to take me on.
Yeah.
And that is just like such a triumph for me personally, like in terms of content. Like if a show or a movie surprises me and makes me feel something deeply, that really resonates with me. And that is what Bly Manor did. Like the fact that they took this show and it was horror and it was spooky and it was
Mhm.
scary, and then they managed to very successfully weave a love story out of it. I just thought that was brilliant. I just thought that was so well done and so unexpected.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it got me. That last episode, I was crying the whole episode.
Mhm.
It was so beautiful and it was so good, and it hit something very human
Mhm.
that I just was not expecting at all. And so that wins. That being said, Haunting of Hill House is still fantastic. Like I'm not trying to take anything away from that.
Yeah, what I think they both do so well, and I hope this anthology keeps going. I hope they find different ways, because that's what I love about ghost stories more than anything, is there's no shortage of allegories you can put into ghosts. Ghosts can be memories. Ghosts can be like this one. It was memories and love stories. It can be like in the first season, grief and it's scary, and I think that's why Hill House hit harder for me, is the grief elements of ghosts.
That makes sense.
Like the episode, what was it, 6, the storm episode, the 2 storms, where they go to the funeral and into the funeral home, and it goes back and forth. I was a mess in that episode, and
totally.
Definitely we pull from real experiences, but I got so many vibes from when my father passed a few years ago and being in that funeral home, and just like having. That's what I love about these shows so much, is they weave the horror into the emotion that's happening on so well that it's hard to, it doesn't feel like it's tacked on or in the wrong place. It feels like they're complementing each other and heightening it.
Yeah, it's very organic.
It's very organic. And I thought that episode was just like, this is all scary. This is all horrible. And just like in this Bly Manor at the end, with just the idea of ghosts being memories, and into Flora and Miles, they don't even remember it. That this is something that they blocked out, and you think about all the things that when we were kids, what are we blocking out, that we've just chosen not to process anymore.
And I think ultimately too, I think in horror stories, if you have not struck an emotional chord, I think you've really missed an opportunity, because at the end of the day, ultimately, it's people that are haunted, right? It's
100%.
It's not really about, I mean, sometimes it is very much about the place, but a place being haunted means nothing until there's a person to interact with that.
Exactly.
Like, that's how you're.
It's not about a house being haunted. It's about a home being haunted.
Right. Yes.
Right. So if you're not going to bring it back to what's the human story going on here, then you've sort of missed the point of the genre.
100%.
Totally.
I must say also that I watched all of Bly Manor while I was at work, looking after somebody. I mean, responsibly while I was at work, but looking after someone who has dementia.
Interesting.
Yeah, I was there the whole time, and I didn't know, of course, that's that Bly Manor was going to touch on that in any way at all. But it was very strange to like watch it within the whole thing within like 48 hours.
Yeah.
While I was caring for this person going through that experience.
Yeah. Damn, it's hard.
It's so interesting how each of us kind of have our own little personal experiences that we attach to more in this show. Like Brian, you bringing up the grief element and the funeral element, and like I know for me, one of the most like hitting moments in Bly Manor, which is probably one of the reasons why I kind of choose it out of the two seasons, is like, one, I do personally I relate to the character of Danny a lot. I relate to her more than I relate to any of the characters in Hill House.
Sure.
And then just the scene where Danny's kind of just talking about feeling like she's like in a jungle and like something's following her, and like expressing like the things that are inside of her, and then having someone that wanted to be there with her be there until the monster came.
Yeah, to like witness it with her.
Like just that. Oh God, I cried so hard. Like
I'm getting kind of chills just thinking about it, like at the end.
Yeah. Do you want someone to keep you company while you wait for this monster?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do.
That was the reason I loved it too, because I thought this season was much more of like a gothic romance versus like a scary story of the first one. And gosh, just the idea at the end where Danny, invited Viola in, and when she goes back and jumps in the river or in the lake, and she's like, "Oh, please, no, take me." And I'm going to butcher the line, but the line just broke my heart, where they were like, "But she wouldn't take her but she was also Danny, and Danny would never." And it was like, oh my God, that like killed me. And that's perfect gothic romance. That it doesn't have to. It's not jump scares. It's haunting thoughts and ideas.
I will say that I didn't. Going into it, I didn't know that was the tone it was going to take.
Yeah.
And so I was very satisfied, but I was disappointed that I never was really genuinely scared of anything, in a way that I felt like Hill House did some things that I was like, ooh, I've never seen that before, and that kind of freaks me out. And the three of us being people who are so familiar with the genre, I feel like it takes an awful lot to actually scare me because I'm just too interested in it to be scared. I'm too excited by all of it to actually feel fear related to anything going on. So to actually do something that's going to scare me kind of takes a lot. So
Yeah. I think it's, there were two different houses, and I think we were texting each other during it and talking about the differences and how watching Hill House, I felt that place was always haunted. There was always, I was scared looking for things in the background and ghosts that were watching.
Yes.
Whereas this one, I think you even made the quote that Bly Manor is different. Bly Manor is a great, good place, and that even though that there was occasionally ghosts that I wasn't hunting them watching the show as like I was during Hill House.
Right.
Because it didn't feel scary. It felt almost welcoming and sad versus like sinister and scary,
Yeah, because Bly Manor, definitely was a great, good place, whereas Hill House is hell, essentially.
In a way, yeah.
And in Shirley Jackson's book and everything, the way that she talks about the house, it's very much like this manifestation of like outer darkness. It's really an awful place.
I guess I would probably agree with the idea that Hill House is just scarier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which one I thought was better? Bly Manor. So it's like they're different things for me.
Yeah, that's fair.
There were moments of Hill House just with everything, with the hanging, the snapping.
The floating guy with the bowler hat in the hall.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
The jump scare in the car, which legitimately made me jump. Like I've never watched a TV show where I've jumped out of my seat, and that happened in Hill House.
I feel like what Mike Flanagan did was that with Hill House, it was like, we're going to hook you with the horror story, but then surprise you with like the fact that it's actually a very emotional story about a family and about grief.
Mm-hmm.
And then now that he's built an audience based off that, I think then you have the luxury of going, okay, now this next story that I'm going to tell is a ghost story, but I'm not necessarily setting out to scare the hell out of you with it as my primary motivation. Like I'm going to believe that you will want to go on this story.
Hell yeah.
Regardless.
Yeah.
And it also just speaks to, on a more like existential level, like what is scarier? Like is like someone, with a broken neck scarier, or is like the idea of, are these concepts of being lost in your own memory, or like feeling alone, or like loneliness, like is that scarier?
Right. Being dead and not knowing that you're dead.
Like I will say, one thing I do want to bring up in terms of just Bly Manor and just gut-wrenching scenes, the scene where Miss Jessel realizes she's dead.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Jesus Christ. Like where she's like as a ghost, like standing on the edge of the lake, like screaming.
Yes.
And Flora is standing there watching the whole thing. Like, oh my God, that was painful to watch. That was painful.
Right.
Yeah, no surprise that Florida blocked that out, growing up.
And I like that it sort of incorporated that idea, that you hear of like hell is repetition.
Mm-hmm.
And how often they were revisiting the exact same moments. And I thought especially, I was glad that they gave that moment to Peter Quint and his mother.
Yes.
Because I was like, it gave us just enough dimension to him
that we didn't hate him. We get it.
That we don't have to hate him, and we kind of get it, but it didn't overdo it to where we're like, okay, so now are we supposed to put you on the same level as Hannah Gross?
Yeah, we never. We could understand them without sympathizing.
But also that scene, no, I loved that scene. That was also a favorite scene because it touched on something that, this is like perfect transition material because I think it speaks so much to what we're going to talk about in this episode. That scene with Peter Quint and his mom really touched on, like, so perfectly illuminated the thing that happens as you get older and you get into your late 20s and 30s, and you start to look back on your childhood and realize what aspects of it were fucked up.
Right.
Start playing it over and over.
And how it becomes, it's a completely different thing. And that's such an important thing when it comes to trauma, like this idea that it is different to be a child and go through something and then be an adult and look back at the thing that you went through. There are two fully different things. And I loved that scene because it just captured that perfectly. And yeah, it obviously humanized Peter Quint, which we did need to see. Like, I liked seeing him humanized, and I liked seeing that really like laid out, like this concept of like, you know what, like when I was a kid it was different, but having to experience
Right.
over and over again as an adult is worse because I have a different point of reference.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was such an excellent balance of humanizing him without asking us to excuse his
Exactly.
behavior.
Yep.
Yes. Which is like ultimately such a powerful thing, you know, outside of the realm of movies and TV and content.
Right. Especially now that we're just sort of inundated with stories of like, here's this person that everybody assumes was bad, but like, let's tell the real story of what was going on with them. And then like with Maleficent, or I mean, I could go on about this topic specifically, but there are just so many things. It's so popular right now in our culture to give backstories to beloved characters or maligned characters, and ultimately it either totally changes their story or it makes you relate to them in such a way that you're like, okay, well now you don't even serve the function in the story that you were meant to serve.
Yeah.
You've gone from making them human to making them totally endearing, and now I excuse all of their behavior, and now they're just a completely different character.
I think that was a big thing that happened last year with Joker that made me so uneasy about that movie.
Yes.
Oh God, I could go off about Joker, but we're not gonna.
One day
Right,
we'll all
yeah.
go off on Joker, but today we're having fun.
No, I totally agree, and I do think it's just a valuable exercise to take into the outside world in terms of, you know, we want so badly for there to be a good guy and a bad guy. We want
It makes sense for the world, yeah.
Yeah, we want it. Our human brains want it so bad, but it's not the way it works. And like, so finding that balance of like really humanizing a character and like being able to connect with a character and still, yeah, not fully excuse them. That gray area, that nuanced area, like that's the only way you can approach a fully formed character or a fully formed human, right? Like no one is just a good guy and no one is just a bad guy. Like, and even though Peter Quint was probably more so the bad guy in the show, like there were moments where you connect with him. Also, he's stupid hot. So like there's
that doesn't hurt. That certainly doesn't hurt.
There are moments where I was like, yeah, I would have fallen for that.
I would have fallen for Hannah Gross 100%.
I think
I already did. Yeah.
She's queen. Like,
and Owen. I fell for Owen too.
And Owen.
I love Owen too. Owen was
too good for this world, too pure.
Oh man. Oh, anyway. Well, should we transition into our topic of the show, because we are 40 minutes in?
40 minutes in. 40 minutes in.
Talk about Bly Manor for like.
Welcome to Blindcast. This is Brian Boy and Corey in the gang. Corey and the Funky Bunch.
We're talking about Bly Manor. Yeah, let's take a quick little break and then we'll come back and we'll talk about our actual topic, which I'm also incredibly excited to talk about. Why growing up Catholic makes you spooky. Hey everyone.
Hey there. We just wanted to take a moment to tell you about Anchor. It is how we have made our podcast, and it's totally free. There is no minimum listenership to make money, which is awesome.
Ooh. Yeah, Anchor is really a great platform. As someone who I'm a dual podcaster. I have another podcast and we are part of a network over there. And so we use a different platform. And so I have comparative experience. And when I came to the Anchor platform, I was really happy and really impressed by how easy it is to use. I really love the interface. Like, it's so clean and easy to understand, and you get all of your analytics very clearly, which you'd think would be like a given on podcasting, but it really isn't. It really is just an awesome platform, and it was so easy to get started on.
Yeah, listen, this is dumb how easy it is. We record an episode, we click upload, and it just sends it out to Spotify, sends it out to Apple. It's so easy and it's completely free. So if you guys are interested in starting your own podcast in this quarantine spooky time, download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.
Yeah, I mean, get creative, get Anchor.
Yeah.
We have returned. It is Corrie, Brian, and Connor here to talk to you about Catholicism.
In like a very specific sense, we're not here to preach or give you the good word. We're here to talk about how
All the Catholicism.
we're episode, what is this, 10? Take this opportunity to sit you down and say, hey, have you heard about our good Lord? No, we're talking about how growing up Catholic, there might be a correlation between that and you being a very spooky person.
Yes, specifically why growing up Catholic makes you spooky. It's a topic I think we touched on a little bit in some previous episodes. And it's a topic that people seem interested in. I feel like we've gotten listeners that are just like, Catholics be creepy. I want to talk about this.
So library's open. Let's read it.
Yeah, you've got three Catholic children here.
We three Catholic children.
That's a Catholic joke. So let's start off by just giving a quick background of our Catholic childhoods. Let's start off with you, Connor, our very wonderful guest. What was your Catholic childhood like?
So I grew up in a small coastal town in Oregon called Coos Bay, and the Catholic Church was in walking distance of my house, St. Monica's Catholic Church. And my mother came from a very large Catholic family. She has 7 siblings. She has 5 brothers and 2 sisters. So my grandparents on my mother's side had 8 children. And actually, my grandfather grew up, or at least spent some time in his childhood in Sioux Falls.
Ooh, that's where I am.
Right. Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's where we grew up.
Yeah, so very like Midwest Catholic roots. Yeah, and so it was always a large part of my life. I was an altar server growing up. I went through the whole deal. I went through confirmation as a teenager. St. Francis de Sales is my confirmation name.
Oh,
I picked him because he's the patron saint of writers. Which was not a bad idea at the time, but I feel like I've learned about many more interesting saints since then. I could have picked a saint that had been flayed alive, but no.
There's a lot of them.
Yeah, and strangely, there's a lot of them. That's kind of my Catholic background. Lots of catechism classes and,
Yes.
retreats to places where you meet up with, the other Catholic kids going to Catholic churches in your state or whatever, or in nearby towns.
What about you, Corrie? What was it like growing up Catholic?
So I grew up in Iowa, in Sioux City, Iowa, and I come from a large, Irish Catholic family. My father is one of 10 children. Yeah. And all of those children went to Catholic school in Sioux City, Iowa. And then I went to Catholic school in Sioux City, Iowa. Yeah, so I grew up going to Catholic school. I went to Catholic school through 6th grade, and then I transferred to public school. My Catholic upbringing was interesting because my dad grew up in a Catholic family, but my mom didn't grow up in a Catholic family. She actually grew up in a Lutheran family, but when I was a kid, she wasn't really into the whole Jesus thing. Honestly, I was put in Catholic school because it was just this smaller class sizes, it'll be good.
The perks.
Yeah, exactly. I had an interesting experience because I was in Catholic school. I obviously went to church every Friday in Catholic school, but I didn't go to church on Sundays super often, which was interesting, which was kind of weird. Because, I did sometimes, but my parents just weren't super into it. I got church while I was in school, and that was enough.
You were like, once a week is good enough for me. Thank you.
I moved to public school in middle school, and then it was still kind of a thing. Like every once in a while, I'd go to church with my family and like the big days, the Christmas and the Easter and
The holy days of obligation, if you will.
Yes.
and then I don't know, high school was interesting. I never officially got confirmed because I kind of just stopped. I just like fell off. So I never got confirmed, but I did all the other stuff. I did like reconciliation. And then I had a moment, I don't know if you even remember this, Brian, but I had a moment in college where I like got back into Catholicism for a second.
I have no memory of this, no.
You, Gandalf, I have no memory of this place.
I bring a memory to you, you're like, I have no idea. But but I did. I got back into Catholicism for a minute. And I know at the time, Brian, you were still kind of into it because I remember talking to you and you were like, yeah, like we'll go to church together. And we totally.
Oh, wait. This was freshman year. Okay. Yeah, I remember this. This was
Yeah,
like early.
And it's like, this is freshman year. That didn't count. That's not real college.
That's just like guilt, like trickling over, That's like.
Well, I mean, I was older than you, so I was like sophomore, junior year. But it was just like a brief thing. It was like I revisited it, and like you and I went to church a few times together, 100%. I don't know what that was about, but
Didn't last long.
it didn't last long. So yeah, and then I mean, like it trickled out in high school, and then I revisited it briefly, and then I trickled out of it again. For me, my Catholicism has been a very like sporadic presence type of thing. And even when I was a child in Catholic school, that's kind of how it was because like I didn't have a family like that was super into being Catholic. That's also the thing about being like Irish Catholic. There's a joke by Jim Gaffigan where he like talks about like being Irish Catholic, and it's like it's not. I don't even know how to explain it. Like Irish Catholics like to party, so that's like Irish Catholics really like to drink and like be like, yeah, we're Catholic, but like that's about it, like. It's not, at least in my upbringing, it wasn't something that was like that big of a deal, I guess. It was just like, yeah, we're Catholic, like it wasn't something we like held on to super strongly. And one thing I'm actually very grateful for in my upbringing as like a kind of poor Irish Catholic is like, we weren't judgmental of people that weren't Catholic. Like we were very like, this is what we are. And then like other people had other beliefs and we're like, cool. Like it was like very chill.
That totally resonates. Yeah.
And then like as I got older, I realized that was not the case for some people. And so like in certain ways, yeah, I had a chill Catholic upbringing, but as we will get into, it was also very scary in a lot of ways. Brian, tell us about your Catholic upbringing.
Super Catholic. My name's Brian Muldoon. Very
Oh, and where are you from, Brian?
Ireland. Very Irish Catholic.
We're shocked.
Shocked, I tell you. Shocked. I went to Catholic school from first grade all the way through high school.
Oh my God.
College was the first time I didn't have to wear a uniform, and it freaked me out at first. I got confirmed. I did everything. I went to church every Friday. We also went to church on the weekends, although it was always like a kind of game where you slept in just long enough you could get away with it, but sometimes it would hit the 11 o'clock mass and it would hit 10:48 and you're like, okay, I think I'm good. And you get up and everyone's like, oh, you're up. Let's go to church. I'm like, fuck.
Wait, were you in 11?
Misread that.
Were you an 11 o'clock mass family?
We were definitely an 11 family. Yeah.
We were an 8:30 family.
In them, yuck.
Yeah.
But then you're playing with fire because if you miss the 11 and they're still jazzed about it later in the day, they might take you to the Sunday night mass, and that was the cool youth rock and roll mass, and that's just 10 times worse.
So much worse. So much worse.
Yeah, we can all agree. Rock and roll mass is the worst idea.
Non-traditional
church music, I'm like, right to jail.
Right to jail. Once you put the organ away, I'm staying away.
Yeah.
For real, I want to hear the weird organ shit. I want to hear the Latin. Like, I do not.
I need to be transported to medieval times, or it's a no-go from me.
Put that tambourine away. I do not.
Yeah. Oh my god. Oh my gosh. Unplug that guitar from the amp. Get out.
Oh yeah. Oh gosh.
Why is that such a thing? Why do we all have that experience?
Because it gets the youth in there, It's for the youths. But so that was my upbringing. Very, very Catholic. I even early high school was considering being a priest for a minute.
Oh, yes.
Yes. And I went and did a tour of a seminary in high school. And that was a quick wake up call of like, hold on, this is not what I want.
Honestly, I still think about doing that.
Do you really? Visiting a seminary or becoming a priest?
I just think that I would have been very good at it. And
I don't doubt that.
I could, and I get to wear nice robes. Like, what's not to love?
But of that weekend, I probably sat for like at least 10 to 12 hours just in silence with a group of like men. Just doing nothing.
I'm gonna ask too many questions. I'm gonna run my mouth. And
that was not the atmosphere there. That was very much where you're gonna sit here and we're gonna like it. Yeah, so that was my Catholic upbringing. So we'll be coming from different places, I guess. Or Corrie, you kind of dropped off in middle school, you said, right?
Yeah, but like I said, I revisited it because I remember meeting you in undergrad, and I remember you telling me that you were like thinking about being a priest, and we had a whole moment, you and I, of like
maybe like, Catholics are they get it. Maybe. Yeah,
like we had a whole like Catholic moment in undergrad. I feel
Catholic
like
moment.
That's a good band name, actually. Catholic
moment. A Catholic moment.
That's the band that plays at the evening mass for the children.
And then also I studied art history. I have a master's degree in art history, and there is a lot of Catholicism in art history.
Like, really? I never would have thought that Catholic art would have been a big part of it.
So many Madonna and Childs painted.
Yes. I just finished reading a whole book about it.
And that's been just an interesting thing in, I guess my intellectual life is being like, oh, I was like primed for this shit, like,
yeah.
And then taking college and grad school level courses about it. So Catholicism, it has always been very present in my life. And also I didn't feel tied to it the way a lot of people did, even when I was a child, because my parents weren't super into it. You know what I mean? So it's always been like this thing that was a part of me and that I identified with and that I know about and that I have lots of memories with, but like also I always felt separate from it too. And that's still how I feel. Like I still feel very, when people bring up Catholicism, I get excited. Like I feel there's that John Mulaney joke. He brings up Catholicism and he's like, if you're not Catholic, I don't mean to exclude you, even though we love to exclude you.
We love it. Oh, we love it.
Because Catholicism was like a little club. And I've always felt like a part of that club and that it resonates with me. But yet I've always towed the line of like secular and Catholic in a very real way.
Yes.
I still have like a kind of romantic relationship with it in that like I love a lot of the art. I love the churches. I love being in a big Catholic church. It's once you get into the doctrine again that I get nervous because I've come a long way in my growing, I feel like, and going back and seeing stuff that flew and stuff that I was, raised on in the imagery. It's like, shit, dude, no wonder I'm a spooky dude.
Yeah, no, that's definitely my feelings too. Like I still 100% can walk into a Catholic church and very much have a spiritual experience. I think Catholic churches are beautiful. Anytime I have been in one, it does feel spiritual to me. I'm a pretty anti-dogma person. The idea, but like going into a Catholic church and just taking in the beauty of it and like the ritual of it, that is a very enjoyable experience for me. And that's also kind of, I think, where I draw my line. I'm like, this is good. And then, I kind of step away when it gets too dogmatic.
Well, that might be a good entry point, talking about the ritual of it and talking about why do you think this makes us, is there a correlation to that growing up Catholic makes us more prone to spooky things? Because a lot of the rituals that we do throughout the Mass are, I was looking up research for this and I did see this Psychology Today article talking about like the macabre side of growing up.
I literally have that article up at the same time.
You have that too? Awesome. Yes. Cool. It was a great primer going into this because it made me think about, oh yeah, that was messed up too. Oh shit. Yeah, that was really messed up. But I love the quote that he starts off right away by saying, this is by Dr. Frank T. McAndrew, by the way. Got to cite source. And he says there's an old saying that fish are the last to discover the sea. And what they mean by that is that when we are completely surrounded by something that seems normal to the point of being invisible, and then we become oblivious to how it appears to outsiders. And so like growing up in just the ritual and the patterns of the mass, that like, yeah, we take this loaf of bread that's really just kind of like cardboard, and then we say, gee, this is now Jesus, and then we all eat them. And then we take some Welch's, and then we say, this is his blood, and then we drink his blood. And at some point they say in the mass, we have sinned, we have grievously sinned while striking ourselves doing it. There's all these different like ritualized actions that we are not told it's symbolic. It's actually happening. We're actually drinking the blood of Christ. We're actually eating. This isn't like this is like a fun play we're doing. It's like, no, we're the action that we were doing. We're replicating what we did at the Last Supper.
Okay, question.
Yeah.
Did you guys ever buy that shit though? Because like when I was a kid, I was like, okay, I'm not obviously drinking blood.
Totally.
I definitely did. Oh my gosh,
totally bought it. Yeah.
Really?
Yes,
oh yeah.
And
my God. Yes.
On top of that, I like secretly looked down on like other Christian denominations because I was like, "You're drinking grape juice? Like it's not even actual wine." I was like,
"That's not even."
I was like, "What's the purpose of like doing sort of like I guess like physical lip service to this?" I was like, "It's not. That's not a real ritual." I was like, "It's not a real ritual like unless it's actually being changed into his body and changed into his blood." I was like, then I could just be like, this peanut butter and jelly sandwich is the
the Eucharist, yeah,
right, like that's bread, yeah, our understanding of what sacraments are was just so much more involved and so much more embodied than other denominations, and so I was sort of like, I don't know, I feel like it's a game to you or something. Like that's not. What am I supposed to latch onto? You've taken all the fun out of this.
Right. I totally bought into it. In that, like, I remember being frustrated as a kid because hearing my teachers and the pastors and the nuns telling us in school about the miracle of what's happening. This is the greatest thing that's happening. It's becoming the body and blood of Christ. And I remember sitting in mass watching, like, I just can't see it though. I can't.
Yes.
When is it happening? I know it's happening. You're telling me it's happening, but am I missing it? And
I
it
will
would make
say
me frustrated.
Yes, it wasn't easy to accept, but it was something that I wanted to accept all the time.
Yes.
I feel that. I definitely feel that. I remember like finding out that people from other like Christian denominations, Protestants and stuff, were like just drinking grape juice, and I was like, what? Like,
what the hell?
Like we were drinking actual wine. We were children drinking.
We were drinking boxed wine like adults,
Yeah.
That's in itself, I feel like it's like full stop. We were children drinking wine.
Catholic children.
And that in itself is kind of just like metal. Like that's pretty badass.
And you felt metal doing it. You're like, whoa.
Catholicism is very metal.
It is.
It is very metal.
And then, so I guess I do. I mean, I was into the symbolism of it, and I definitely had those like spiritual moments of like, I'm accepting this as the body of Christ, and I'm accepting this as the blood of Christ, and that gives it power. Like, so I definitely had moments of like, this is a powerful thing, but I guess I still always saw it as a symbol. I still always was like, this isn't actually like it was like it was different. Yeah, it was different than.
Well, I feel like the disappointment or like the letdown of it was that you would imagine that, okay, if this is actually the body of Jesus and the blood of Jesus, when I consume it, I should be able to notice a change in myself, and that should stay with me for days to come. Like there should be some sort of like physical thing that I felt, and maybe some people do. Maybe people have a different sort of religious experience with the Eucharist than I had, but I was always like yearning for like, okay, like if this were magic, if this were a potion, if something else, like it would be much more obvious. It wouldn't be so subtle, and it's hard to grapple with subtlety when you're a child being told something that sounds so explicit.
Right.
Did you ever feel like you had little moments of magic? Because I guess I did feel like right when I took it, it felt like a little zap, like a little like.
Yeah, I don't know. I
don't recall any. And I feel like if I did come up with anything, it would have just been like a result of my desperation to
Yeah.
feel something that I would have like, it would have just been like a placebo effect or something.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, and I agree with that completely, because I think the placebo effect is the most powerful effect in the world, so I definitely think my willingness to believe it made the magic happen. I had those moments of magic. I had those moments of like, I'm feeling this, but it was always like very brief. And I guess I just, even as a child, I always understood the symbolism of it. Like, I always understood that I'm having a spiritual connection, but like, I'm not actually eating flesh and I'm not actually drinking blood.
Right. Well, and I feel like you have to, with children, you have to approach it at least first from a symbolic way before you like get them into like, okay, but actually, like this is how we're introducing it to you before you actually learn. This is the real belief behind what we think it is, what we think.
But I
we're
think,
doing.
that's the first step in what we're talking about. No, maybe this made us spooky, is because we're introduced that this at such a young age before we even like,
Yeah.
you're just giving kids live ammo with like, yeah, you're eating flesh and blood of Christ. And you're like,
Yeah.
What? And they're like, yeah, we'll tell you when you get older.
Yeah.
We'll get into it later. But right now, this is what you're doing.
Also, we believe in the resurrection of the dead.
Yeah,
So
we believe in all of it. And I think we touched on a really big part of this is this yearning and this deep wanting to believe in it that I think is still residual today, that even though I'm not part of the faith anymore, I love the horror genre and the spiritual and all this stuff, because there's still this like, I spent so much of my life wanting to believe in this like spooky, higher power, double, all this stuff, that there's a place to kind of put it now, that
right.
I still don't believe in ghosts, but I love ghost stories because I spent my whole life, kind of believing in
God, I wish
ghosts,
I believed in ghosts.
I
Yeah.
do too, the ghost stories are still my favorite of any story, because I don't think in no small part my Catholic upbringing.
Another thing I wanted to bring up is like the shit I did all the time, every week of my life as a small child in Catholic school, is way creepier than anything I've ever done as like a witch. Like, in terms of my like witchcraft practice, I just like collect leaves and rocks.
Leaves, rocks, light a candle, like it's all pretty tame.
You're just like a bridge troll.
Yeah.
I give little offerings to like nature, and the shit I did as a Catholic child was fucking creepy.
But I'm gonna argue that what it sounds like, the stuff that you're doing as a witch is like very Catholic, because it's recognizing, right, like the innate divinity of the things that you are interacting with in the world. Like, you're collecting leaves because like they're endowed with something, like these have significance to them, and so there's still like a Catholic sentimentality that you are bringing to your witchcraft practice.
100%. Yeah. I think that's the perfect way to put it, because I feel like my relationship to Catholicism and my relationship to like witchcraft and spirituality now is very similar. Like, they're very related, even though like I said, I can't get on board with like the Catholic Christian dogma, but the concepts, the spiritual like moments of connection, I always loved that shit, even as a small child. I have a memory actually of I was probably in first grade, like I was like 7 years old, and I remember sitting in my living room, and there was some kind of like History Channel show about, it was around Easter, and so it was about the crucifixion, like it was about the crucifixion of Christ and the resurrection, and I was like sitting there watching it, and I was like right up on like super close to the TV, and I remember like my mom walking into the living room and being like, "You're really into this, aren't you?"
Oh, man.
And I was like, "Yeah." Like, because like I said, like my mom wasn't really into Catholicism, and like it was very much in a spiritual way and not in like a dogmatic way. It was like in a like, I'm interested in this like spirituality aspect and this like resurrection and death and like all of these like heavy themes that are at play. And I'm still interested in today. I just don't identify as a Catholic. I don't, I haven't I don't go to church, but like I'm still interested in those exact same themes, and they definitely play into my spiritual practice now. And I'm just way more comfortable with the terminology of like witchcraft and being a witch because it's a lot more open than
Right.
Christian.
It's not, yeah, it doesn't have so much stricture on it. Yeah.
Exactly. So no, I mean, I think you're totally right. I think the things I was attracted to as a spooky Catholic child, I'm like
TM.
attracted to as a, spooky adult witch now. I think they're very related for sure.
Yeah. Well, and I think it makes so much sense that Catholicism is attractive to children because so much of it is rooted in story.
Mhm.
And so it just really works your imagination, and you get hooked with that first.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of morality stories, morality plays,
Yeah.
and morality. That they're all these little nursery rhymes almost. They're much more graphic, but it's essentially what they are.
And a church itself is like just a house for story. Like the stained glass window, like everything about it is telling you a story. Like it's all feeding you some sort of narrative, like down to the tiniest detail. It's all just like this house of storytelling.
And I love that we're in the storytelling part, because then we're talking also about the art of all of this. And we were so saturated as kids with all of this Catholic art that was not chill. This is like
Yeah, it's so graphic. Yeah,
so graphic that in every Catholic church you're going to see the one big mannequin crucified to a cross in front. That's like a staple of every church. You're going to see that a dead man nailed to a cross with a spear, in his side.
Were you too judgmental about other crucifixes that you saw?
In what way?
In that, like, that Jesus looks dumb or bad. Like, this is ugly.
That's a
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I would go to other churches and I would like judge their huge crucifix. I'd be like, wow, that's a terrible carving.
Very territorial about your own crucifix.
Yeah, I was just like, it needs to look right.
I definitely had experiences where I'd go to other churches, like Protestant churches or churches that weren't Catholic, and I'd be like disappointed because Catholic churches were just so grandiose and like, stained glass and the paintings. And I have literally some of my earliest memories as a human being, like some of my earliest human memories are of being like this small child in a pew eating the dry Cheerios and like staring up at these incredible images, these beautiful paintings painted on ceilings and like these stained glass windows. And like, that's what I do in church as a child. You'd have your snacks and like, know what was going on. And you just look at all the pictures and you'd look at the colors. And like, I was so fixated on that stuff. And then in my like teenage years, I remember going to church with friends that like weren't Catholic and just being like, this is your church?
Right. Yeah, being really disappointed.
Yeah, I think you hit on something really big too, that when you weren't just looking at pictures and like cool things on the walls, these were like grand, like awe-inspiring pictures, that
yeah, it's not shitty art.
yeah, that depict some really dark imagery. So like this, from a very young age, we are in awe at such macabre things, that we're looking at like the church that I had the Stations of the Cross, going around the church, and they were lit by candles, and there was bright lighting, very moody. And I was like, my gosh, this is so spiritual. But all the pictures they're depicting the agony in the garden, or the scourging at the pillar, or the crowning of thorns, all of them are such like violent images, but they're presented in such like awe-inspiring ways that from a kid, I was like, wow, this is amazing. So even though I'm out of the faith, I maybe can connect my love of horror, being like, well, from a young age, I thought horror was awesome,
Yeah, right. I remember telling a friend of mine who didn't grow up Catholic one time, very nonchalantly, I brought up how like around, Easter, like Lent, like we would every week we'd do the Stations of the Cross. We'd go to church during school, like during school time. You go into the church and you go through and you read from your book and you look at each image of the Stations of the Cross. And I never thought anything of that And a
Mhm.
friend of mine was like, what?
Yeah, there's a sort of like contemplation of like really taking time with each one and trying to like internalize like what's actually happening in
Yeah.
this moment.
Yeah, and that's not chill. Like being a kid and really contemplating what's happening here at this scourging of the pillar. What's happening? Like
Right.
there were better things for me to contemplate at age 8 than that.
Right. Not that there like isn't a good way to do it, but I'm sure most of the ways that people tried to introduce that to children probably didn't go over in the way that they wanted it to.
All right, little bit of an abrupt break there, but that is the end of part 1 of our 2-parter on why growing up Catholic makes you spooky. Be on the lookout later this week for part 2, where we get into everything from ashes to relics to stigmata, all sorts of creepy things. Thanks for listening.